everyone, and welcome to our webinar today in partnership with Vertasia. My name's Neil Perry and I'm Broadcast Director for InsurTech magazine. Now, today's session is called Smarter, Safer, Faster, Agentic AI Strategies for Insurers. Now, if you're working in insurance right now, well, you'd hope so. You're definitely in the right place and on the right webinar, but you already know the pressure is on. There's huge opportunity with AI, but also a ton of questions to grapple with as well. How do you use it without opening the door to risk? Whether that's operational, regulatory, financial, that list goes on. But the good news, we're not just talking about generic AI anymore. Agentic AI is here, and it is, of course, a game changer. And I know that's a cliche, but it is. It can reason, it can adapt, and it can actually think through complex insurance processes. And that means faster claims, sharper underwriting, and smarter operations too. Now, to illustrate that, let me hit you just with a few key statistics. Some 77% of insurance carriers are in some stage of AI adoption at the moment. That's as of March 2025. They are in some phase of adopting AI into their operations, and that's a significant increase from 61% back in 2023. You can do the maths for yourself there. It's not too challenging. Also, around 80% already are using or planning AI. That's a May 2024 survey by the Ethical AI and Insurance Consortium. They found that some 80% of property and casualty insurers are either currently using AI or planning to do so within the next year. And finally, high prioritization of AI. In 2025, 83% of insurance executives are prioritizing AI investments as part of their digital transformation strategies. There's some overwhelming statistics there. But most interestingly, for me, is the number of carriers who are piloting agentic AI, which is really key to our conversation today. A July 2025 report from the Capgemini Research Institute that indicated that some 20% of insurance organizations were piloting initial agentic AI in use cases, with another 12% having partially implemented already or scaled the technology. That just shows how far we've come and how fast. So in this session today, we're going to be getting practical. We're going to be walking through some real strategies for using AI safely and effectively. And that's not just in theory, but in claims, in underwriting, and in the back office where it really counts. And this is what we're looking to explore today. So here's 3 key points I want you to tick off as we go along over the next 45 minutes or so. First of all, accelerating ROI. Pinpointing AI use cases that deliver measurable value, from faster claims processing to improved underwriting and reserving. Minimizing risk, implementing AI responsibly with human-in-the-loop oversight, compliance safeguards, and validation methods. That's to ensure accuracy. And finally, how to scale smarter, safer, and faster. That returns us to our title. Learning how a platform-based approach can unify processes, reduce complexity, and extend benefits across multiple business functions. My word, that is an awful lot for us to do and not a whole lot of time to do it in. So I'm joined by Chris McLaughlin, CRO, and Keith Schlosser, Financial Services Growth Advisor. Great to see you both. How are we?
Good morning.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Hey.
As I said, that's a lot for us to get to. So let's crack into it if we can. Just so we all get acquainted properly with the audience, just a quick introduction to yourselves first. Chris, if I could start with you, just 30 seconds to a minute on you and your role, if you'd be so kind.
My pleasure. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris McLaughlin. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at Vertasia. And by way of background, I've spent about 25 years in the content management space, and we've been working with AI technologies there for almost 10 years now. And one of the things I value most about my role is just the ability to meet with customers every day and understand how they're using AI today.
Thank you very much indeed. Keith.
Hi, Keith Schlosser here. I've been in the insurance industry for 36 years, held various roles in organizations, large and some small. Most recently, CIO of a Fortune 1000 specialty insurer. Prior to that, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies.
As I said, we have proper experience on this panel today. So Keith and Chris, thank you very much indeed. Where I'd like to start, if I can, is looking at the big picture, because we can't look at the future without really establishing where AI is in insurance today. What I'd like to go through just from both of you is where it's being used today, whether that's underwriting support, fraud detection, operations automation. There's so many different areas. Keith, if you could kick us off, where do you see it being used in insurance today at the moment?
In all aspects of the value chain, primarily we're seeing the first implementations around underwriting, so pre-underwriting, the ingestion of submissions, the clearing of submissions, the data prep, helping the underwriters understand what they're looking at. We are starting to see some indication that they're looking to use agentic AI in understanding which risks have the highest propensity for bind. That is really interesting. We're also seeing it in claims. So preparing the claim as it comes in, and giving the claims adjuster, the knowledge worker, a lot of the information that they and others would be researching either manually or through very complex processes. We're seeing agentic AI step in and prepare those claims and get the knowledge worker more information to make a decision, and possibly make a lot more of those decisions in the time that they are at the office.
When the AI question really made sense to me was when people started using the word augmentation regularly. And I think what you're saying there is it really gives those experienced professionals that kind of superpower, if you like, to do more and do it better. Chris, anything you'd like to add?
I think I'd like to emphasize something you started with there, Neil, which is the stats. And when you think about AI in insurance, it's really pilot. It's early stages of implementation. I think what we see a lot of is a lot of broad adoption of general LLMs like ChatGPT, Copilot. But what we don't see a lot of is production usage. And that's really what we're focused on today is how do we help insurance companies get more value from this technology and really move agentic AI into production.
So let's look a bit more about what AI can do. And Keith, you alluded to this into your answer here about the sort of success it can bring. The augmentation side of things, as we've talked about. For you, is that the area we should really be focusing on? Keith?
I think so. So many processes in insurance carriers are really manual, labor intensive, and oftentimes that work is being done by our knowledge workers. And if you think about the productivity gains that agentic AI can bring, it frees them up to do more of the things that we value as leaders in any organization. It's taking their years of experience and making, very smart decisions. The other thing I like about agentic AI is that as it prepares either the underwriter to actually underwrite or a claims person to actually settle a claim, it can pull in on a lot of information that is normally not given to an underwriter or given to a claims person. By way of example, here are the last 5 similar underwriting submissions that we got, and these are the decisions that were made and the clauses that were included. That is not something that is readily available in a more manual underwriting operation.
Chris?
So I think what we're really looking at, and maybe the underlying aspect of the question is, are we going to replace human workers in this equation? And I think a lot of people, when they first approached this technology, that was the thought. Hey, we'll automate a lot of these activities and reduce our reliance and cost on humans. I think what we're really finding is where value is not in replacing humans, as Keith said. It's really on focusing humans on tasks that are higher value to the organization. I think the other thing that we found from a value standpoint is a lot of that is not cost cutting, it's revenue generating. So by being more efficient in their time, they're able to do more customer facing activities. We're able to leverage the technology to be more personalized, more engaged with customers, which leads to better downstream outcomes in terms of cross-sell, upsell, improves retention from a customer perspective. We're also making better decisions, and we can automate decisions and be more accurate about things like reserving around claims. So there are a lot of very high value impacts to the organization that have nothing to do with replacing employees.
And I'm so glad you've mentioned that, Chris, because this has been something that's come up a lot for me during our tech or fintech events recently, is the question of AI and the impact on more junior employees potentially, and maybe the loss of expertise coming in through the junior level, and where are the next generation of leaders coming from? And I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head there. The easy option is to reduce headcount, rely on AI to replace people, and that side of things. The smart people are doing a little bit of both, as you're saying there, to find that value. Would you agree with that perspective?
Yeah, we think about AI more about instead of necessarily doing work for humans or replacing humans as more augmenting the work that humans are doing. And I do believe that there is automation in there and there is real value in that automation. But I think what we really have to understand about the impact of AI, particularly on junior workers, is it's going to make them more efficient. They're already using it today. Find me an employee that's not using ChatGPT or something like that today. Of course, they're using it. It makes them more efficient. It makes them more effective in their roles, but it also changes how they do work. And that's what we have to understand is that, and what's really interesting, a lot of my meetings with customers, who are they looking to for ideation and for direction around AI? It's their younger employees because they're more familiar with the technology. So what we really have to recognize is it's just going to change the nature of the way that more junior employees work. It's also going to actually give them more information, not less information in which to perform their work. So at the outcome, at the end of that equation, you have more informed employees who are actually touching more transactions because they're more efficient. And I think the downstream impact is that they're just more effective, they're more productive, and they're going to be every bit as capable as they move up through the ranks.
There was a wonderful expression I heard not so long ago, and it's probably been used in so many different ways. It's AI is not coming for your job. The person who knows how to use AI is, and I think that is absolutely that needs to be on a range of mugs or T-shirts. I think. Keith, anything you'd add on that on the impact on the employees or more junior ranks?
Sure. I think it's a real enabler for companies, and especially helping our junior employees or our early entrants into their career get up to speed. If you understand what's happening in the insurance industry, you'll know that our most senior underwriters and senior claims people are all heading very quickly to retirement. And I see AI as almost like a virtual mentor, helping them get up to speed, learn the business. And, people are very, very busy. So it's hard for, a senior underwriter to take someone under their wings and teach them all about, how to underwrite a particular risk and, go pull this file and go pull that file. AI is doing that. And it's making people much more productive and getting them up to speed much quicker. So I think there's a real opportunity there for those who embrace it.
And I think you've both led us in really nicely to the next area of the conversation I want to get into, and that's about demystifying AI, the risks, some of the misunderstandings. Let's look at some of those common fears, the bias, the regulation, compliance, job displacement. We've covered some of those. For you, what are the biggest misunderstandings that you see and hear on a day-to-day basis? Chris, if you want to kick us off with that.
Sure. I think one of the biggest ones that we run into, and it's kind of this collection of, I have concerns about security. I have concerns about transparency, perhaps regulatory compliance, right? We're talking about highly regulated industries here. And, I think foundationally, it's a conversation of how is AI making decisions and how are we getting to certain outcomes? Are we having bias in those decisions? So I think there's a lot of, rightful fear here. We recognize, and in full transparency, AI makes mistakes. But I think what we have to recognize, and how I like to think about this is AI not as some foreign technology someplace in your organization that's spitting out outputs, but really it's just digital workers. And just like any digital worker, AI is capable of making mistakes. And we do need to review the work that AI does. And when we're thinking about big decisions, high risk transactions, that work needs to be reviewed. Those decisions need to be made by knowledgeable people. So we need to think about them just like we would any other junior employee in the organization. And we need to put in place the right infrastructure, the right guardrails, as well as just the right reporting, transparency, and understanding about how these tools are making decisions in order to effectively manage them, just like we would a junior workforce.
Very true. Keith, your thoughts?
Yeah, I hear often, AI, we're not ready for it. We're highly regulated. It's not the right time. And I think it is absolutely the right time because agentic AI can do so much to prepare the knowledge worker to make the right decision. And so, I think there is fear out there. There's fear around compliance. There's fear around, it making a wrong decision. But Chris, to support exactly what he's saying, this is not about the agentic AI making a decision on a complex bodily injury claim. This is about agentic AI preparing the claims person to fully understand what is happening and to make decisions faster and make more of them. In addition to that, I think it's also the closed loop aspect of it. So taking all the information that the claims people have on claim trends and what they're seeing and in a particular risk class and seamlessly getting it to the underwriter. So when they get a similar ingestion of a submission, they're prepared to start making decisions based on real life trends and what's happening in their book of business. So, I get people are nervous, it happens, but I think there is so much goodness here to make people more productive and better outcomes.
I would have to say that if you work in insurance and you're not even slightly risk averse, you might be in the wrong industry. Perhaps
Sure.
something to consider. We've been very glass half full so far, talking about what AI can do. I want us to be, this is very unlike me, be a little bit glass half empty and explore what AI can't do yet, because I think that's just as important to know the limitations and so far. Chris, if you want to kick us off again on this, for you, what can't AI be doing yet within the industry? What are your thoughts there?
I'm probably going to give you a little bit of a different answer on this one than you're expecting, but right now, AI can't scale and isn't delivering the value that insurers expect from it, right? You hit a bunch of different survey results earlier. I'd refer to like the MIT Nanda survey recently, right? 5% of organizations have embedded or task-specific AI, or what we would call agentic AI, in production today. A bunch of other surveys point to, a lot of experimentation in insurance, but not a lot of scale in insurance. And where we see the real value for this technology is not just in picking specific use cases, but really thinking from front office to back office about how we can leverage AI, as Keith said, to make knowledge workers more productive, efficient, and effective. So where we see real struggle in the industry, dissatisfaction at the CEO board level, is in the pace and in the adoption of this technology, and specifically in production. So a lot of experimentation, a lot of early projects, but not a lot of actual production impact to the business.
Thank you, Keith.
I think, early days go back to 3 years. There was a lot of talk about, AI replacing workers, driving down expense, and so on and so forth. So there were assumptions made, and and I think they were unrealistic. And some of those things that AI shouldn't be doing, in my opinion, is making the decision that a knowledge worker with 25, 30 years of experience, is able to make and apply the nuance of the situation. I don't think at this point you're going to see that in AI. Experience matters here. But I think that we can make the employees that are doing the decisioning so much more effective and have a lot more throughput so that they can have better outcomes. So I've said it earlier. I just don't think AI is ready to take over someone, what someone has learned over their career. I'm just not seeing that. So I would say it's really going into this, understanding what your goals are for the company and what you think it can do reasonably without getting you in trouble. And it's pretty straightforward in our industry.
And this is where we bring in the most advanced piece of technology known to man, woman, and child, and that is the human in the loop, the experienced professional. Let's not forget that every so often. Why is the human in the loop, as well as AI safety, reliability, transparency, etc.? Why is that so critical and so important as part of this conversation? Chris, could you kick us off?
Yeah, well, I think Keith nailed it, right? We like to think of AI agents as really intelligent, really capable, and infinitely scalable graduate students, right? They don't have tremendous experience with your business. And in that circumstance, they have no business making mission critical decisions for your organization. So as we think through that, right, it's really about involving humans at the right point in the process. And as we talked about earlier, enabling agents to do the kind of work that we don't want humans doing or we don't want them wasting their time with. And we've talked a lot about agents. It might be good to take 30 seconds and just explain what we're talking about here. But from an autonomous agent standpoint, it's really leveraging the capability of AI to perform a certain task, to go out and, like a human would, build a plan for how they're going to complete that task, to use various tools, access, assemble information, perform analysis, and then provide that information back to a human worker in a much more efficient format than requiring them to go out and do all of that information gathering themselves. So as we think about that human loop process, it's really about, hey, we can automate these routine tasks that humans, quite frankly, don't really like to perform, and then bring the right information to them at the right time so we can enable that mission critical decision making.
And I guess having the right platform is part of that, which is part of the reason why you guys are here today. I will give you a brief window just to cover that off, Chris, about how that platform actually works and fits into this conversation, just to give us a little bit of context. And then Keith, I'll come to you on the aspect of the human in the loop.
Sure. And without going into a full commercial, why don't we think about it this way? First and foremost, from a platform standpoint, particularly when we think about human in the loop, right? We got to think about workflow. We got to think about how we're routing information from machines, AI, to humans, and also think about it from a long running perspective, right? We've got to wait for a human to perform work and then continue in a business process. We've also got to think about information access, data security. Do you want your agent exposing sensitive information to an employee who's not supposed to have access to it? We've got to think about reliability, right? If you've worked with ChatGPT, LLMs, they fail all the time. So, how are you going to handle redundancy, failover? If you have high volume tasks, how are you going to handle load balancing, right? Dedicated inference is incredibly expensive. So thinking about how we can leverage multiple public models to perform high performance tasks, very, very important. We talked about it earlier, but transparency from a platform standpoint. What are my data inputs? What are my data outputs? How are we leveraging AI in critical tasks and activities? And how are these engines making different decisions? And then I think the last thing, and why we argue for a platform, is all of this in one place, right? Or have you built a bunch of bespoke apps and agents in your organization? Do you have a bunch of point solutions that leverage AI? And is all of this transparency, security, data access, workflow spread out across a number of different apps and applications where you can't possibly either maintain it or have effective visibility into it. So that's why we really focus on taking a platform standardized approach to scaling AI in the organization.
That makes perfect sense. And don't worry, Chris, my producer does have a cut-off button if anyone goes too commercial. Yeah, you just go. That's how it works. Keith, if you could be so kind as just to continue that with the importance of the human in the loop, 'cause I think this is such an important part of this discussion.
So I'd like to just build on what Chris said, and then I'll get to human on the loop if I could. As a former CIO, I can tell you, I don't want to build this platform. It's not in our wheelhouse. Where we offer value is in understanding the data of an insurance carrier. Where we offer value is in the rate quote bind and issue platforms. This is not something I would want to take on, and I think that over the last couple of years, several organizations have tried to take it on. I've been told specifically of a couple, and it didn't go as they planned. So, just to underscore what Chris said, we have great technologists in our industry. There's no question about that. But building this out is just not something I think is the best use of human or financial capital for a carrier. Knowledge workers. We've hit on it a few times. It is just so critical. But one thing that we haven't hit on when it comes to knowledge workers is they don't work in a vacuum. So when you are underwriting a very large risk, you're not sitting there at your desk, not talking to anyone about that risk. You're not working with your leadership team. You're talking to the pricing actuaries. You are talking to the claims people. You are engaging with other very, very smart people in your business to make sure that that risk is adequately underwritten, properly underwritten, and priced, and that you are looking at reinsurance treaties and things like that. Agentic AI is not going to do that. If you go into it thinking that agentic AI is going to make the perfect decision on day one, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. I think if you go into it thinking agentic AI can make me much more effective and help us produce a better outcome faster, 100% agree with that.
Absolutely. And this has led us on very nicely to the future outlook. And what I want to explore now, just for a couple of minutes, is how to measure success and ROI in AI projects. As you were saying there, Keith, there are people who've dabbled in this and it hasn't gone as they would like. Obviously, you don't have to name names there; that wouldn't be appropriate. But talk me through it. How do you go about measuring that success?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is really establish what your goals are. If you're going to take this on and say, I'm going to cut my expenses by X or my, human resources by Y, I'm not sure that's a good ROI case. I think if you look at it and say, we get 30,000 submissions a year in a specialty carrier, and we're only able to get to 8,000 of them. What happens if we take it to 16,000? And those 16,000 are absolutely within our appetite, and we're working with brokers that have the highest propensity to bind. That's the ROI that we should be talking about, right? If we see that the average underwriting process, from ingestion to quote being released is 45 days, and we can do that now in 10 days, there's ROI there. And so I think it's really starting with the definition of what good looks like for the carrier or the customer, the MGA or whoever it happens to be, and then looking at how we can use agentic AI to flip some levers that make us much more productive, not only at the individual underwriter, seat, but across the entire organization. The other thing that I would say here is that back office has been largely overlooked. And I've been involved in a process where we do our budget. We talk to the folks in operations in the back office areas of the company that desperately need attention. And usually right at the end of the budgeting season, those projects are cut. the money is moved over to revenue generation, and off we go. And so these people have been starved for progress within their operations. I think agentic AI can play a big part there, really helping those organizations become more efficient at a very, very cost-effective, rate, if you will.
Absolutely. Chris, your thoughts?
I'll approach it from this perspective and ROI, which is one of the things that we do find is there is a kind of mismatch between people's perception of AI, particularly generative AI, and where it is best applied in an organization. And so one of the things that we really try to do with customers, and I think part of this, Neil, is just a byproduct of the fact that people's perception of AI today is largely shaped by ChatGPT, right? We're kind of the victims of the success of that platform. So they think about it in this kind of query respond way, and that all AI work kind of works that way. So I think it's really critical to, one, kind of understand the broader and particularly agentic capabilities of AI, where you can embed agents into existing processes to deliver a lot of value, productivity, and efficiency for your human workers, as we've talked a ton about today. And then really kind of look at it, and we tend to use this kind of 2x2 paradigm with our customers in terms of really exploring different use cases and trying to identify those as you're kind of on this journey where you're getting high value, high business impact return from the technology. And in a perfect world, you're beginning with kind of your low effort projects where, it is a easier deployment, perhaps less integration into a variety of different business critical applications inside the organization, and you're getting high return. Just like any other technology, it's important to start with momentum. It's important to start with a high return activity to really get employees to understand it. And the other piece is you got to think about change management, right? It's not just, and I think this is where a lot of projects struggle with ROI, whether it's AI or other technologies, right? Are the employees prepared to properly utilize the new technology, or are they just going to revert back to their old ways of doing business? So when it comes to ROI, what we really like to focus on is, one, choosing the right use cases and the highest value use cases first, and then two, making sure we're bringing the employees along for the ride.
All right, we are rapidly running out of time, so I'm going to put you on the spot just for a moment. I'm allowed to do that because I'm the host. It's part of the job. What I'd love is a case study or a real killer example from each of you on an insurer that's really seeing benefits from AI adoption. Keith, I'll start with you, sir.
So I think the end-to-end underwriting process is a great example. So if you think about a specialty carrier or a carrier that's doing large commercial risks or complex underwriting, they only have so many underwriters, and but they're getting a lot of submissions, and so they're only able to get to a certain number of those submissions. Um, what they are lacking is an understanding of, what is the best thing to work on. So oftentimes they're selecting what comes in. It's a favorite broker, and off they go. Well, that broker might only have a bind rate of 8%, where there's another broker out there that's got a bind rate of 45%. So using agentic AI to really understand what is happening with that particular submission. Is it in appetite? Have we seen any recent claims that cause us to rethink our appetite? Is the broker a broker that, one, is delivering high quality risk to us, and do they have the highest propensity to bind that coverage? So I think that's a really interesting use case, providing some level of prioritization and insight into the submission to make sure that we're working on, one, the right submissions, and the ones that are staying on the cutting room floor, if you will, are the lowest priority ones. Maybe further, taking those lower priority ones and running them through some sort of automated process. That could be interesting. Looking at automated renewals. Underwriters spend a lot of time on renewals. My question is, do they need to? They've already underwritten it. We already know what the claims history is for the last year. Is there a reason for them to actually need to touch that renewal? One last part of this kind of value chain of underwriting is they quoted a lot of things the year before. Let's just say they quoted 8,000 and maybe 30% were taken up. So the 70%, if it was good enough to quote last year, why wouldn't we send out using Agentic AI a new quote automatically, just send it out to the broker and say, we like this last year. We'd love to see it this year. Here's an indicative quote for you. So, I mean, it's a long answer to the underwriting value chain. I think in the process to underwriting, I think can be re-envisioned using Agentic AI, keeping the human in the loop and making the right decisions, but getting them to the point where they have the submissions that will give them the highest opportunity to book and bind a very, very good piece of business.
I think that's an excellent example. Chris, you've got the slightly easier task here because you've had a couple of minutes to collect your thoughts for an example. Over to you. You've got the slightly easier job.
Not easier because I lack the depth of Keith's experience in this industry. But I will tell you one that we have begun to see commonly with some of our insurance customers is demand letters. It's just an ideal use case for agentic AI. You've got a limited time to respond. You have to gather a lot of disparate information together in order which to make a decision. Prior decisions and outcomes from demand letters can influence your decision making. So really going back to Keith's talk track earlier about giving a knowledge worker everything they need to make an informed decision. This is a great example. We've got to go policy information. We've got to pull the claim information, any related claim information or previous claim information that might be relevant to this particular outcome. And we've got to do it within a very limited time frame for the organization. So it's one of those use cases that is not foundational to the way that insurers do business. We typically talk about claims and underwriting, but is so important to them and represents a lot of risk to them if not properly handled.
Sage advice, I would say. We are rapidly running out of time, I'm afraid. I've got a couple of pre-submitted questions from the audience I do want to just tick off before we look to wrap things up. Let me have a look at the list. This is a good one. And if we can keep the answers to these pretty punchy, I'd be grateful because we are very, very nearly out of time. Will Agentic AI replace underwriters, claims adjusters, and the skilled team members that support the business? I know we've touched on this already. Quick fire answers. Keith, Chris, what do you think? Will it replace them?
I don't think so. I think it's just going to make them more productive and the company much more efficient.
Yeah, for a second, I thought that was going to be the mic drop of mic drop answers. I don't think so. Walk away. Chris, sorry.
No. I was just going to say, yeah, we beat this one to death. It's going to replace some of their routine activities. It's just going to allow them to do more meaningful work.
Exactly. Right, next one. Let me pick from the list. Hang on. Should carriers be afraid of agentic AI? That's a strong word. And potential regulatory challenges. Quick fire answers on that. I'd be very grateful.
Afraid, no. Thoughtful, yes. Keep an eye on the regulations. They're emerging. I think with a platform like Vertesia, you have total transparency into the decisions that are made. Very probably even more so than a human. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of, but I think you have to be thoughtful in the way you do it, and certainly, Vertesia can help you through that.
That's a nice way to approach that. And one more last one. I'm going to squeeze this in. You've been very generous with your time, so I'm going to eke every last bit of it out that I possibly can. And I think this is a key question about the pluses and benefits, really, of building your own agentic AI platform rather than buying something a little bit more fully formed. Pluses and minuses on that. I'll leave that open to both of you. What are your thoughts?
Chris?
So obviously we believe a third-party platform approach is the right approach to this. And foundationally, the research bears it out, right? Companies that use a third-party platform are 2 times more likely to get agentic AI into production. Really, I'll make it real simple. Why spend your time building infrastructure when you can be building apps and agents which are actually delivering value to your organization?
As a former CIO, I see no compelling reason to build this technology. It is, I would refer to it as a distraction from the core mission of the company. I'd rather get a platform and, as Chris said, spend my time helping the business drive revenue and increase efficiency. I see no reason to build it.
Well, I will trust your experience very much on that, Keith. And Chris, thank you very much for your answer there as well. As I said, we are right up on time. So thank you to everyone who sent those pre-submitted questions in. Hopefully that's covered that off nicely for you. As I said, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. My thanks to both of you. Keith, Chris, really enjoyed your company today. We will speak soon, no doubt. The recording of this webinar will be available again shortly, so you can come back, watch it again, and share it with anyone who may find it useful. I'm sure you know somebody. So thanks again for watching, and bye for now.